Happy New Year. I am Julia Holian. My colleague Liz Helton is here with us. This is Just Ask Julia. It's where we share tips, trends, insights, and resources to help you transform your career and elevate your success. If you are watching this as a recording on our YouTube channel, feel free to click the link in the description below. You'll be able to sign up for future Just Ask Julia calls, which we hold on the first Friday of every month at 9 a.m. Pacific. So today we're going to talk about making this your year. So 2025, this is the year for you. We want this to be, a year where you are able to move the needle in whatever way you need to get what you want out of this the next 12 months. So one of the things that I notice is that when people start thinking of the new year, they think of resolutions. There's a lot about that, in the beginning of the year. We talk about New Year's resolutions, and they're the lose weight, get a new job, all of that. As we're talking today, this could be about your career and some of the things that you want to do to make this your year, but it might not be about your career. It might be about doing something else that is about fulfillment. So just keep that in mind. Even though we're talking as, career coaches, we're always talking about what you want to do from your career standpoint. Sometimes making this your year isn't always about your job or always about your career. It could be about doing other things in your life that make your life better, that will also in that way affect your career as well. So let's kind of dive into some of the ideas around this. So what would your goal potentially be? It might be to make some kind of a change. You might be looking to, you could be looking to change jobs. You could be looking to relocate to a new place. Maybe you want to move to a different city. Maybe you want to uh, get a new look. Maybe you want to go, work with somebody so that you just kind of like change your clothes. It could be anything. You could be trying to add something. You could implement it. Maybe you want to design something. Like I know people who are really creative, but they're in a job that doesn't necessarily have them feel like they get to create a lot. So they go in and they, create a goal that they want to create something. So they feel like they're fueling that. It could be something completely else, completely different. So what else is it? What else is it for you? What's your goal? But I think what's really key to understanding goals is what is your motivation to that goal? Because a lot of times we think of like, I just want to do this. And as coaches, we're always looking at what is truly behind that. Are you open or interested in learning something? And even like, why do you want to learn that? So let's say you want to take a cooking class. You might want to take a cooking class because you want to learn how to make sauces. But why do you want to learn how to make sauces? Well, it's because my food doesn't taste very good. Or maybe you want to learn to make sauces because you want to entertain more. Well, what does that mean? Why do you want to entertain more? I want to bring more people into my life. I want to have more social events. Maybe it's about getting a mentor. You want to have somebody who you can learn from. So your goal is that you want to change something, but in that you really want to get a mentor. You want to learn from somebody so that you can feel that you are getting like the insights and the tools and just the support system that you need. For a lot of people, it's about money. I specifically didn't put money first because if I put money first, everybody kind of latches onto that. Money's a huge motivator for most people. But even then, what is that money about? Is that money about lifestyle? Is it about you want to travel more, or you want to get a bigger house, or you want to be able to buy your first house, or maybe it's that you want to have more savings, or maybe it's that you want to send your kids to private school. It could be anything. Maybe in your motivation, it's about direction. Like I want to move in a different direction. I feel like the direction that my life is going in or my career is going in isn't where I want it to go. Maybe you're feeling a little stuck, and we'll talk about that in a second. Maybe it's just about fulfillment. Maybe your goal is just that you want to feel fulfilled. So maybe you're in a job where you're thinking, I can't really change jobs right now. I can't do that. but I can set a goal to do something else that gives me a different kind of fulfillment. It could be a class, it could be a course, it could be joining a group. There's a number of different things, but I want to get this other fulfillment because that is what's going to make me feel better in life. So, what is your goal is great, but you've got to really understand the motivation that is behind that because that motivation is going to be intricately important to how you evaluate or measure your success as you're going along and as you get to the end of the year. So that motivation is what creates your feeling. Do I feel like I achieved it? Do I feel like I didn't achieve it? And then what's the feeling behind that? So really look at that motivation so that you can understand what am I truly trying to get out of this, so that I feel what it is that I want to feel by the end of the year. I know when we talk about goals, we don't always talk about feelings, but you know what? Every single goal that's personal is actually a feelings goal. So keep that in mind. Now, what I notice is that a lot of times I'm having a conversation with someone, we're talking about these things, and the real answer is, I don't know. Like, I just feel stuck. And I bet there are a few of you right now looking at this going, I just feel stuck. I can't answer Julia's questions. Um, when you're stuck, you're in a rut. And I looked up the actual definition of rut, and I was like, this actually is very helpful because if a rut is a habit or pattern that has become dull or unproductive, but seems hard to change. It's that last part that's really the hardest thing for everybody, is that it just feels so hard to change. So if before you can even set your goals and really understand your motivations, you're like, I just feel like I'm stuck and I'm kind of floundering and I don't know what to do, I want to give you some things to think about that might help you get out of that. And I'm going to start with going back in time. And this is something that I think on the surface seems a little simplistic, but I would go back to your young self. Go back to who you were, how you thought, and what you did when you were 8, when you were 12, when you were 15. What were you doing back then? Because back then you didn't have the same responsibilities. You had to probably, you had to get up in the morning and make your bed and eat breakfast and go to school. And maybe you had some chores after school and you had to do your homework. You had those types of responsibilities, but by and large, your imagination could take off. You could do so many other things that didn't seem like they got judged or you didn't judge them. So, what were those things that you did as a kid or a teenager that fueled you? So, here's an example. A lot of times when I'm talking to somebody who is kind of closer to my age and we talk about like what life was like when we were kids, everybody when I was a kid was in some version of Scouts. They were a Boy Scout, they were a Girl Scout, they were a Bluebird, they were an explorer, they were something. And I think sometimes you can look at those groups and say, oh, yeah, I can kind of put people into categories. And what category were you in? Were you the person who was really, really great at selling cookies or selling nuts and popcorn? Or were you great at planning the next event? Were you the person who didn't like to do the planning, but once you got to the event, like you could really make it everything? Were you the person who welcomed other people in? Who were you when you were in that kind of a group will actually tell you a lot about who you are. You could even look at like before you had all this responsibility, what did you want to do professionally? So for me, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I think every kid, almost every kid at some point wants to be a veterinarian. So if you're thinking, I want to be a veterinarian, well, what does that really tell you? So being a veterinarian, you could say, well, it's because I like animals. I like dogs. I like cats. Yes. But what being a veterinarian really would mean is that I like caring for others. I like fixing others. I like helping people or animals move forward. So it makes sense that I didn't become a veterinarian, but I went into recruiting as my initial career because I loved helping people get a job. I loved helping people. I loved going home at the end of the day knowing that I impacted somebody's life. So when you think back to what you were doing as a kid and the things that you wanted to do, who you wanted to be, a lot of times they can tell you things, but you have to kind of go under the surface and figure out, well, what does that really tell me about what that meant? So consider that. And then even think back then, like what did you imagine yourself being today? And that can be beyond just a career. It could be kind of like what your lifestyle was. Like maybe you thought that you were going to jet set places. Maybe you thought that you were going to work, and live in a different country. Well, what does that tell you about living in a different country? That might tell you that you actually love learning about people and culture, and you like being in places that have history, or it could be anything. So when you're thinking about what you want to do next and getting yourself out of the rut, one of the first things is to like kind of go back and before you had all this responsibility on your shoulders and think, who was I then? And what did I want? What did I like? And really dig into how that can help you think of like, what does that mean to who you are at your core? Because most of the time when we're in a rut, when we're not happy, it's because we've gotten away from feeling like we are who we were meant to be or who we are at our core. Another idea is to think of like what lights your fire today. So when do you lose yourself in something? Maybe you love to cook and like that's my time. Like I get into the kitchen and I am just a whirlwind and I'm getting things done. Well, what does that say about you? Maybe you love pulling things together. You're a great arranger. You have this sense for how things go together. You're kind of like a puzzle, person. Maybe you love to be out in the garden and you love to get dirty and you love to kind of rip things out and put things in. What does that say about you, about wanting to kind of nurture things and help them grow? Maybe you're a cyclist or a runner and you love being out in, whatever environment and doing your sport, but that's also time that you have to think. Well, when you're using that time thinking, like what are you really learning about yourself? So what lights your fire? What could you talk about all day long, or what could you teach other people about? What could you write a book about? So thinking to get yourself out of this rut about what are these things like these rabbit holes that I go down that tell me who I really am at my core and what I really enjoy, and getting underneath the surface and what does that really mean for you. And then lastly, I want you to consider breaking up with normal. What I mean by that is when we're in a rut, you've got to change things up, and they don't have to be big things. It could be, I have to commute into the office 3 days a week, but I'm going to take a different route home at least one day a week. And that way I get to see a different neighborhood. It could be I need to add something else to my plate. I need to take a class or I need to join a group. It could be I need to stop doing something. But getting kind of out of your rut, can be helpful. Or getting to get out of your rut. I think what's helpful is to kind of break up the normal, like break up your routine and do something different. I actually had a conversation with somebody last week, and she's had a really great career for like 15 years. And she said, "But I don't really want to do this anymore. I want to do something else." And she talked about some of the other things that she was thinking of, but it's just so hard to take a 15-year career and feel like you're kind of throwing it away or just like casting it off and not doing that anymore. So when we started talking about what she wants to do, we talked about breaking up with normal. And I said, before you come to me as a coach, before you and I start working together to figure out what that next career is, I want you to go take the next 30 to 60 days. She had a little bit of time, so she's fortunate to have that, to take the next 30 to 60 days and go do a whole bunch of like little passion projects or do other things that are interesting to you. It might be that you've had a stack of books next to your bed for years that you've never gotten through. Go read a bunch of those books. It could be go take some classes. Go join a gardening group. Go decide that you are going to pull a bunch of your friends together and, every Saturday morning you're going to go on a walk. Do something that fuels yourself and kind of gets you out of your normal routine and fuels you in another way, because that's how you're going to help get yourself out of your rut. So it's hard to set goals and figure out the motivation of those goals when you're in the rut. So try some of these things. And if you have more, interest in learning more about them, that might be where you want to give me or give Liz a call, and we can talk a little bit more about them and maybe help you think through like what you might want to do. But get out of your rut before you really get into the goals. But now, getting into your goals for the year, how do you get started? I'm going to talk about 5 things. I'm going to talk about visualizing, acknowledging, prioritizing, communicating, and committing. So jumping into what you want to do to make this your great year. 2025 is the year for you. So what do you want to do? The first thing I want you to do is I want you to visualize what you want things to be at the end of the year. Just fast forward. Here I am, I'm in January. What do I want December to look like? What is going to be different? How is that going to feel to me? What am I going to celebrate? You might even incorporate who's going to be with me on this journey so that I can look at like what I want that to look like. It could be that you're in a different job. It could be that you're in a different house. It could be that you are in a new relationship. It could be that you have learned a new skill. It could be that you've made a new friend. It could be anything, but start visualizing what you want your life to look like in 2025, December. Because when you can look at that, it gives you kind of a target. We sometimes talk about even creating a vision board, and you might want to do that. I went down this rabbit hole the other day of being in Canva. Did you know that you can go into Canva and you can put in vision board, and they have all of these designs that you could like kind of put pictures up? But you don't even have to do that. You could go on the internet, just take a bunch of pictures and sort of put them up on a wall in front of you, or make some kind of a visual list. But look at what it is that you want everything to look like by the end of this year. And then I want you to take a moment to acknowledge what you do have, because it's really easy to look at, I want to change these things, but not necessarily have the perspective of, well, what do I already have? Because especially if you're feeling like you're in a rut, or you're feeling like it's really hard, and maybe you sort of feel like you've been a little beaten down, I would say stop for a moment and acknowledge what you do have, because it's really important to be aware of what is working or what you do have in your life. And that could be family and friends. It could be the health of your family and friends, the security of them. It could be that you've got a really good network. Maybe those people aren't close friends, but you have a network. Maybe you are fortunate to have some flexibility. So if you are looking at what you want to do going forward, your flexibility, whatever that might look like. It might be time. It might be, maybe it's your kids are now grown. And so you're an empty nester and you now don't have the same time commitments that you used to have when your kids were home. Maybe it could be that you work in a job where you can work from home and you have flexibility with your time. It could be anything. It could be finances. And I put finances in here, not money, because I think finances are a little bit of a different concept. But, where are your finances? Maybe that's something that is working for you. Maybe like the person I mentioned a few minutes ago, she's got money to spend the next 30 to 60 days immersing herself in some things that she really enjoys to get out of her rut. And so she should be thankful for that and acknowledge it and realize, okay, this is something I've got on my side, because realizing what you have is just as important as thinking of like what you want to add or change or implement, or design or create in the rest of the year. And maybe it's something else. Maybe I missed something. So I've got the other in there. So those are steps 1 and 2 of getting started. Next, I would say prioritize. So, what do you need to add or do, create, delete, or change to reach your goal? So, if you're looking at your goal and maybe you want to change jobs, Maybe before you can change jobs, you need to gain some new skill. You need to add something to your resume. Maybe you need to take a course. Um, if you're looking at like where your technical skills are in your company and your company isn't really giving you any kind of professional support, they're not helping you to get more educated, they're not giving you any kind of that development, maybe you have to go take that on yourself. So you have to go into Coursera or Udemy or edX or any of the other sites. Maybe it's LinkedIn Learning, and you have to start taking some courses just to kind of feel like you're getting ahead, and you've got some things to talk about in an interview, you've got some things to put on your resume and on LinkedIn, but you got to take a course. Maybe you need to join a professional organization. So where I see this come up quite a bit is when somebody wants to make a career pivot. Making a career pivot, which is like really changing your career, could be your job, could be your industry, could be both. If you are looking at making that kind of a change, you got to meet new people. You got to meet people who are doing the type of work that you want to do or doing it in the environment that you want to be in. And so joining professional organizations and immersing yourself in that is really helpful because you get to meet those people. You usually have access to education. You have access to events where you get to learn, you get to talk about, you get to immerse yourself in there. So maybe you need to join a professional organization. Or maybe in order for you to hit your goal, you got to stop doing some of those things that take up your time. Like maybe you got to stop binging Netflix, or you got to curb your time on that, or maybe you got to stop playing video games. Something you might have to give something up. Um, Maybe in order to really get ahead in what you want to do, is like I need to put my resume together with all of my accomplishments because if I don't have that together, I don't know how I'm going to network. I don't know the stories to tell. I've got to really get clear about who I am and what I do and why I do it and who I do it for. So I need to pull my resume together in order for me to hit this goal because that is going to be one of the tools that's going to keep me on track with what it is that I want to achieve. It might be I've got all that in place, but I need to start using LinkedIn because LinkedIn is going to help me in these other myriad of ways. So maybe that's part of your goal and you need to start using LinkedIn and you don't really know how to do that. So you've got to double down on what LinkedIn's algorithm is today, how it works, how it could work for you. How often do you need to be in LinkedIn? Do you need to be in it daily or weekly? And depending on those, what kind of activities do you have to have? It might be that you want to hire a coach to help you figure out what your goals are and how you're going to have this be your great year. It might be that you want to create your accountability team, which could be a professional team. It could be a personal team. Like if you've got best friends and you're like, we are all looking at this year and we're saying, this is our year. Like I kind of laugh if you're on TikTok or Instagram, there's all these sort of videos and memes of people being like, this is going to be my year. And they're all, doing something kind of, fun or silly. But you always see them in like groups of people. And that's your accountability team. Those are the people who like, they know who you are, they know what you want, and they're going to help you get there and you're going to help them at the same time. I would certainly say you might want to design a calendar or a checklist system so that you know what you're doing and you can keep yourself on track. And I would definitely say ask for help. And I put this in here late last night because I think every single conversation I have had with somebody this week, they have told me, I really hate asking people for help. I don't like asking people for help. Yet, what's always interesting to me is that the people who say they don't like to ask for help are the people who love to help others. And so, if you are feeling like you're one of those people, you know, everybody likes to help other people. Don't be afraid to ask. People want to step in and be that for you because we always get so much out of it ourselves as well. But you got to ask. You got to step forward and say, "Hey, this is what I need. I don't know how to do this. I don't know where to start. Can you help me out?" So steps 4 and 5 of getting started. Step 4, communicate. This is really, really important. If you're going to set a goal, you're going to take a class, you're going to make some kind of a change, you got to let people know. It might be that you need to tell your spouse or your best friend or your kids or your boss or your coworkers. Like if you're going to take a class and maybe that means you have to leave the office every day or you're going to, at a certain time because it's in person, or maybe it's a class where it's virtual, but every, 2 months you have some kind of a cohort meeting and you have to take Fridays off. Maybe it is that you need to let your family know, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to really launch my job search. And that means that I need to dedicate time to it. And I'm going to treat it like it's a part-time job. And so every Tuesday night and Saturday morning, I'm going to take 2 to 3 hours to work on this. And that means I'm not here. You can't bug me. This is what I'm going to be doing. I've got to dedicate my time. So, doors closed. Don't bug me during that time. But make sure that you're communicating with people what you want to do. And make sure that they know what they need to know. Why you don't need to know the whole of why you're doing it, unless you want to share that with them. But what do they need to know so that they can support you? And then let them know if you're going to be giving them updates because people might be curious about this and you want to get that support. Maybe you need to tell people so that they are your cheerleaders or they are your accountability partners or they're just curious and they want to know what your progress is. And then the last thing to getting started is you got to commit to it. And by committing to it, it's by having some kind of a plan. So you want to have some clear action steps. You want to set these up so that they're quarterly, monthly, and weekly so that you can look at them that way. I know we're talking about the whole year, but sometimes looking at 11, 12 months away is a really big, swath of time. And so you might want to break that up and say, you know what, I can't boil the ocean here, but I can break it up into segments. For the next 30 days, I'm going to focus on this, or my next 90 days is going to be this, but then I'm going to break that up even into 30-day increments, and I'm going to break that into weekly activities. So you want to make sure you've got that plan set up. I would say you want to be consistent. I say consistency versus constancy. I don't know that you always have to be constantly in it. Some people think I have to be doing this all the time. I think you have to have dedicated time and you need to be consistent with that and you need to be uh, you need to make sure that you kind of hold yourself to some kind of a cadence so that you don't get away from it. Monitor your milestones. Again, that's where that checklist could come in. You know when you are accomplishing something. Like maybe, you want to get your resume together, or maybe you want to reach out to 10 people. Whatever that is, monitor your milestones. And then I'm going to come back to the ask for help because I think it's one of the biggest things people overlook, and I want to remind you of that again. So as you're going forward, we have a SMART goals sheet. I'm actually going to put that in the chat. So let me just stop for a second here. The SMART goals sheet that you see on the right, I'm going to put that into the chat so that you can download it if you want to. And this is something that you can use to kind of set up your SMART goals. I didn't specifically go through all of the SMART goals today. I know a lot of people have heard about them where you want to, it should be something specific and measurable and achievable and relevant and time bound. There are other ways sometimes people say attainable instead of achievable or timely instead of time bound. It's all the same. But if you want to use this sheet to help you, go for it. But when you think of your SMART goals, it could be anything. It could be, again, you want to land a job. You want to get a certification. You want to learn a new skill. You want to create a network of contacts in a specific profession. You want to be known for something different. And to be known for something different, you have to start doing things that are different. It doesn't matter what your goal is, but start now thinking of what that would look like and then start mapping that out for the year so that you can measure your results and make it manageable and see what your progress is. I think measuring your progress is one of the best motivators for keeping yourself on task and also reminding yourself, this is worth it. I want to do this and I'm going to feel really great when I get there. But sometimes getting there are those little milestones. So don't forget those. All right. One of the things that could help you if you are interested in this, and many of you have already heard about this, but we have created a career transformation community. It is where we are bringing together ambitious job seekers like most of you who are committed to pursuing meaningful careers. And the goal of this is to help you navigate your job search with confidence, interview successfully, and be excited for the future. So if you are interested in getting more support from us, you might want to go check out our community. This is what the page looks like on the right when you click on the link that's down on the left, but go check that out. It's a subscription model, and it's very reasonably priced so that you can jump in and get what you need on a monthly basis or a weekly basis. And we have weekly coaching calls to help you stay motivated, to help you work through problems, and a number of other things that we're constantly offering on a day-to-day basis to help you achieve whatever your goal is. And then finally, if you are not connected with us on LinkedIn, please get out your phone and look at this and connect with us. Look at our community, check out our website. And if you are looking at this in the video afterwards, certainly click in the links below so that you can get more information about Just Ask Julia.